Hello and welcome to the BucketLister Podcast. Join your host Keith Crockford along with special guests who have travelled the world, here to share stories of their adventures and plenty of inspo to add to your bucket list. Now, let's get into today's episode.
Hello everyone and welcome to this episode of the BucketLister Podcast. I am your host Keith Crockford and today I am back on my own. Which is okay because I'm recording quite a lot of these on my own at the minute, and I've had more requests from the series that I did a few weeks ago where I was chatting about different destinations and things I wish I knew before I booked. And someone said that they wanted one done on Machu Picchu. So today I'm going to talk about exactly that. So things you should know before you go or book to go to Machu Picchu. Now, obviously, the first thing is, and people are probably listening to this who already know of the Bucket List Company and know we organise treks to Machu Picchu. But obviously, you don't have to trek to Machu Picchu. You can just go to Machu Picchu and visit it and get the train there and do no walking at all apart from around Machu Picchu. So you do have that option. But at the Bucket List Company, we do organise 3 different treks to Machu Picchu, and we've done various podcasts on those different treks. And I'll put links to those in the show notes. But obviously, the treks we do to Machu Picchu are the Inca Trail trek, which everybody has heard about and knows about. The Lares trek to Machu Picchu and the Salcantay trek to Machu Picchu. Now, for me, my personal favorite is the Lares trek. I know for some of our other guides, it's the Salcantay trek. And we sell more trips to the Inca Trail trek than any of the others. And that's really the one we don't push very much. And I've already done podcasts on those, so I won't go into too much detail on those. But yeah, I mean, the Inca Trail is quite busy. And there are only 500 permits a day for the Inca Trail. And it gets booked up very, very quickly. So if you want to go out and do the Inca Trail trek, then you will need to book in advance. You probably can't turn up to Cusco and get a place on an Inca Trail trek because you'll have needed to have your permit in advance. Now, of those 500 permits, 200 of them are for trekkers every day, and 300 of them are for porters, support staff, guides, etc. So you will be trekking with 200 people or up to 200 people every day on that one. On the Inca Trail, you have the choice of carrying all of your own kit, or you can hire a porter and they'll carry a 7-kilo weight limit for you on the trek. I mean, most people opt for that, and people do wonder, how am I going to carry 7 kilos worth of stuff? But remember, you are only trekking for 3 days. The 4th day is actually your day in Machu Picchu. So you don't need too much stuff. And that weight limit kind of carries on whether or not you are doing the Lares trek or you're doing the Salcantay trek as well. In terms of durations, Inca Trail trek is 4 days, Lares trek is 4 days, and the Salcantay trek is 5 days, with the final day always being your visit into Machu Picchu. Now, the one plus point about doing the Inca Trail is it's the only trek that allows you, out of the 3 that we do, to trek into Machu Picchu itself. For the Lares trek and the Salcantay trek, you stay in Aguas Calientes, right at the bottom of Machu Picchu, the night before in a hotel, and then go up to Machu Picchu the following day. With the Inca Trail trek, you actually arrive at the Sun Gate and trek down into Machu Picchu on your final morning of the trek. So that, for me, I think, is the plus point of the Inca Trail, is the fact that you do get to do that. The negative side of that is that all of the people at Machu Picchu Gate have already made their way into Machu Picchu by the time you get to Machu Picchu itself. So it's full of lots of people. And on the last few occasions I've been into Machu Picchu and done the Salcantay or the Lares trek, we've been one of the first people into Machu Picchu, and you get that magical photo of Machu Picchu with nobody in it itself, which I think is a pretty special photo to have. So you just need to weigh up what you want to do, really. Obviously, in terms of Inca Trail, there are thousands of miles of Inca Trail over South America, and it's the Inca Trail to Machu Picchu that you are walking. So even if you're on the Salcantay trek or you're on the Lares treks, you are still walking on old Inca trails, original Inca trails. So bear that in mind. Now, as I said earlier, if you're booking with the Bucket List Company, we will, if you're on the Lares trek or Salcantay trek, we will always book the first bus slot up in the morning. And they've changed it now with Machu Picchu. You used to just buy a ticket for the morning or the afternoon, but now you've got restricted time slots. And we make sure that we've got the first time slot into Machu Picchu itself, which gets us on the first bus up there. So you do get that, hopefully, that moment where you walk into Machu Picchu and you're one of the first ones in there, and no one's actually got down onto the terraces yet to ruin your photos. But if you are going and you're booking to go singly, or you are you're heading up there on the train yourself, then do make sure that you get an early bus slot booked, because otherwise there are going to be potentially lots of people around when you finally get up there. Other things to think about Machu Picchu is now you have to have a guide for Machu Picchu. And you can either sort that out before you go. Obviously, if you're going on an organized trip, you will already have your guide with you. But if you're heading there on your own, then you'll need to either book a guide before you go, or there are guides standing outside Machu Picchu waiting to take you in. Once you go into Machu Picchu now as well, you cannot come back out again and then re-enter. And that's changed quite recently. It used to be you could come back out, go to the toilet, have a coffee, go back in again with the same ticket. But now you're no longer allowed to do that. So make sure that when you are going into Machu Picchu, you go to the toilet beforehand, because you can't come out and go again. And also, you need money for the toilet. It's only a few soles, but make sure you've got some change when you get there, because you do need to pay to use the toilets outside, which has caught a few people out beforehand. So just bear that in mind. If you are on the Inca Trail, you trek into Machu Picchu, and then you actually do come out, because you cannot keep your bags in with you in Machu Picchu. You need to leave your bags in the lockers. So again, make sure you've got some money available so you can pay to leave your bags in the lockers, and then you will end up heading into Machu Picchu once you've kind of come out and gone back in. You can do that if you're trekking that trip, but you will literally come through Machu Picchu to come out, leave your bags, and then you'll head back in as a visitor to Machu Picchu if you're doing it that way. So just bear that in mind. The other thing as well is Machu Picchu, be prepared for a very long wait. And I've done this quite a few times now, where you've kind of gone in early and the weather, it's pretty much in the cloud forest, which is why Machu Picchu was built where it was, because it was pretty much hidden by cloud all the time for when the enemy were coming, and that nobody knew it was there. So quite often when you get up there, and I've had a few disappointing trips in the past where you don't kind of get that perfect view of Machu Picchu, but you kind of stand on the terraces waiting for the weather to clear. But you need to be prepared to kind of wait it out really a little bit. And I've had it a few times where you've kind of been waiting. Even sometimes I've waited there for a couple of hours for the cloud to be able to clear, to get that perfect view of Machu Picchu. And sometimes, I mean, touch wood, it hasn't happened to me, but you might not get a perfect view of Machu Picchu, or even a view of Machu Picchu if it's really cloudy and misty, as it can be up there. So, don't be too disappointed if you're going to get that, because obviously, it is not great. You've spent all that time trekking there, you've been waiting for this trip, but obviously there is very little you can do about the weather. So try and wait it out for as long as you can. And, if your guide's really good, he'll allow you to stay there, and kind of wait for it, as long as you possibly can to get your view. But I had it a couple of years ago where it did clear enough, but I've had some better views there. And I did feel a little bit sorry for the clients I had with me on that trip, because, they didn't get that iconic blue sky behind Machu Picchu. But sometimes the cloud coming in kind of does give it a really nice effect as well. But, you kind of got to take what you take, really. Unfortunately, it's the weather, and there is very little we can do about it. But the other important thing there as well is to make sure that, there's a few things you need to take with you when you head to Machu Picchu. One is insect repellent. There are lots of bugs around at Machu Picchu. You are in the rainforest. So make sure you have your insect repellent, make sure you have a drink with you, and more importantly, make sure you have a poncho or your rain jacket with you. Now, you can buy ponchos from outside Machu Picchu itself, but obviously they come a little bit of a premium if you've forgotten it, or you can buy them in Aguas Calientes before you head up. But the weather can change quite quickly in Machu Picchu, so just make sure that you are properly prepared for it. Now, going back to the 3 treks that we offer, like I said, I will put links to the other podcasts I've done which go into these in more detail. But I kind of, I always say to people, people say, which trek should I choose? And the quick answer to that really is it depends what you want to achieve out of it. Now, if you want to see Inca ruins, then the Inca Trail trek is the one to do. You do get to see a lot of Inca ruins on that one. If you are happy to be trekking with other people, that many other people as you're going. If you want to see more of the community, then I would suggest looking at the Lares trek. And quite often on the Lares trek, I mean, I've done the Lares trek 4 times now, and out of all of the times I've done the Lares treks, whilst we've been trekking, I have never seen another trekker apart from the group that I've been with, and that's been amazing. So if you want to see local community, and you do walk through a lot of communities, and they are the Andean people are so friendly. And, they invite you in to show you their houses, and, you can sit and have a cup of tea with them. And it's just a really, really nice experience. I mean, last year, we were helping a local community harvest potatoes, and there's loads of children on the route, and kind of, if you've got sweets and stuff in your bag, they all come running out when you come trekking past. And it's amazing to be part of that, which is one reason why it's probably my favorite trek to do to Machu Picchu. And then you've got, if you love the mountains, then the Salcantay trek is the one to go for. And that really is, the scenery on that one is just stunning. There is a couple of hard climbs in that one. And the Inca Trail, the Inca Trail, obviously you've got the Dead Woman's Pass. And a woman didn't die on it, just to point that bit out. The reason why it's called the Dead Woman's Pass is if you kind of look at it from a distance, and you look at the layout of it, it actually looks like a woman laying down, which is why it's called Dead Woman's Pass. It's nobody died on it for that reason. So that's quite a difficult climb, up to 4,200 meters. But where the Inca Trail really kind of gets most people is actually on the steps. On the way back down, there is a lot of steps on the Inca Trail, and anyone with sort of fairly dodgy knees does tend to struggle a little bit. And one of the descents is called the Gringo Killer, and I can certainly see why it's called the Gringo Killer after I did it for the first time, and quite a few people do suffer on that one. The other thing with the Inca Trail is you have set campsites to stay in. Whereas with the Salcantay and the Lares trek, you're kind of not as restricted as you are on the Inca Trail. And with the Salcantay and the Lares trek, there is no permit for it as such. So you can rock up to Cusco and book one of those treks quite easily compared to a last minute Inca Trail trek. So, you know, if you are arriving in Peru and you suddenly go, oh, actually, I want to go trekking to Machu Picchu, then that is, you know, they're probably the easier options for you to go and do it if you want to do it that way. With regards to kit that you need to take with you to Machu Picchu, there isn't a great long kit list really. If you are for any of the for the 3 treks, I mean, it does get cold at night. So you are going to want some warmer clothing for the evenings. You are going to want a nice warm sleeping bag. You are going to be camping. So potentially you're going to want a roll mat to sleep on. Check with your provider and see if those are provided for you. On our treks, they are provided with a thin mat, but some people want to take a thicker one as well. Obviously, you're going to need a good pair of walking boots or a pair of walking trainers, and some trekking clothes. But pretty much that's about it. There's no real specialist kit that you need. Food on any of the treks is amazing. We hear it back all the time from all of our clients that go on these treks that actually, you know, you get fed so well on a Machu Picchu trek. Excuse me. The chefs that they take are, I mean, the food is amazing. You know, if you've got any dietary requirements, you are really well catered for. You know, they definitely get that out there. And, you know, I know that we've had some people in the past who have sort of had dietary requirements and they've taken supplemented food out with them because they were worried. And, you know, that they got fed probably better than everybody else in the group because, you know, the chef really did make that special effort to make sure they were catered for well. So, you know, if you like your food, you certainly won't have any problems on a Machu Picchu trek with eating because you get fed so well on those. And, you know, with all of our treks, they start in Cusco. So generally, if you are traveling to Peru, you will arrive in Lima Airport, and then it's just over an hour's flight then to get to Cusco. And you definitely need to make sure you've got a few days in Cusco to just to prepare your body, because Lima sits at sea level, Cusco sits at 3,300 meters. And obviously gaining that altitude in such a short period of time, when you get off that plane and you're suddenly wandering around Cusco, you certainly feel the lack of oxygen in the air, and any little kind of short bursts up a hill or walking up a set of stairs, you know, for the first couple of days, you really do feel it. So make sure if you are planning your trip to Machu Picchu that you allow yourself a good few days in Cusco just to get used to the altitude, because it does catch a few people out. And then finally, if you're heading to Machu Picchu, then do consider Rainbow Mountain as a add-on excursion. I mean, Rainbow Mountain's getting so popular now with people. It's becoming a real kind of Instagram photo to have on your page. But my advice would be get there as early as possible. And with our groups, I always kind of get a little bit of stick because we do it the day after we've been to Machu Picchu, and it is a really early start. And people always say, oh, why are we getting up so early? And we start trekking quite early when we get there. And we're generally one of the first people to arrive in the car park. And we kind of get to the top, do the photos of Rainbow Mountain. And then you kind of turn around and look back down to where you've come from and just see the hordes of people coming towards you. And then all of my clients go, oh, okay, yeah, I get it now. I see why we've left so early. Yeah, you were right again, Keith. So do make sure that if you are heading to Rainbow Mountain, then you're on a really early excursion, because it is becoming super popular. It probably is getting close to over tourism, but it is iconic. It is an amazing photo, but you just don't want hundreds and hundreds of people in it with you. And if you do get up early, you get to achieve that photo that you want without any problems. So just bear that one in mind. But that kind of pretty much covers it for everything I think you need to sort of consider about Machu Picchu before booking it. Give you a few pointers there and a few tips and a bits of advice. But like I say, the show notes will be packed full of information on Machu Picchu and the different treks that we do and the other podcasts we've done. So if you put all of that together, you will then certainly have all the information you need before you head out to see what I think is one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. And, I think I must have been there 10, 11 times now. And every time I go, it still blows my mind of how amazing Machu Picchu actually is. And to think that, 100 years ago, or just over 100 years ago, it wasn't discovered and it was still hidden. And they're still finding more and more Inca ruins out in Peru as we speak. So where they've just been overgrown by the rainforest and the jungle and stuff. So it is super interesting. If you want to head out to Machu Picchu or you've got any questions, then please don't hesitate to get in contact with us at the office, and we will be more than happy to give you some advice. And I also wrote one of my ultimate guides. So we've got a 70-page ultimate guide to Machu Picchu. That's on our website. That I'll put a link into the show notes as well. That's pretty much got all of the information you will ever need to know about it as well. So that's it from me. I'll be back next week with another episode of the BucketLister podcast. But until then, have a great week and speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the BucketLister Podcast. Be sure to click follow to be alerted for next week's episode. For more travel inspiration, check us out at www.thebucketlistcompany.co.uk or follow us on socials. See you next time.